Welcome to Connect to Joy. Your host, Carol DeChaine, is an intuitive spiritual guide for practical matters and Marconic multidimensional energy practitioner. Her quest is to help you realize new possibilities, discover and release what holds you back, and enable you to manifest an inspired life filled with joy. Join us on this journey of transformation. Now, here's your host, Carol DeChaine.
Hello, beautiful spirits. Welcome to the show. I'm Carol DeChaine, and my passion in life is to help you find your joy, to release what holds you back, and assist you to quantum leap your journey of self-discovery. I'm an intuitive, certified in life and business coaching, and a Marconic multidimensional energy practitioner and teacher. So if you're ready to start creating that life you've only dreamed of, that you deserve, let's have some fun. And let's get started right now. Hello. Last week, we talked about having your limitless life by making your hobby your business and how to decide when it's time to do that, and all the fears that come up and all those sorts of things, how to talk to people about it, and putting together that sort of plan. Well, guess what? Today, we're going to talk, like I mentioned last week, about all those steps that I've done myself that I felt like I was doing from scratch. And I wanted to put them all in one place so that it would help you as well as anyone else that wants to make that leap and just isn't quite sure all those different pieces of the puzzle that you need to do. Hopefully you already have an idea of what you want to do. You already have a hobby or something in mind that you do that you love, and that it's easier to really make that shift when you already have something in mind that you want to do, rather than coming up with something because you just don't like your day job. There's a big difference there. First, I want to reiterate what I said about figuring out what you want to do. What is that dream? I want you to really enjoy finding that dream of what you want to do with this hobby. Expand it. Do you want to make it bigger than what you do now? Do you want to just focus on what you do? Do you want to refine, go through each thing you can and refine what you think you want from this? Realizing that dreams change, they shift. You might tweak them as you come up with other ideas. Other options show up that you hadn't thought of. But come up with this thought because you want to think about what's your specialty. I know as a life coach, that's what they said. Where's your niche market? And sometimes you don't need a niche market. You can just be a life coach. But if you can focus on it, it's easier to advertise and market yourself. You know who to do it to. Think about what your specialty is and really delve deep into it so that you know it feels right to you and it's what you want. Another practical step is to decide if you want a partner. Do you want to do this on your own? Is there someone else? I touched on this last week. Is there someone else that you want to, who's already in this hobby that you do, that you think would be a great partner, that you'd kind of work well off each other? Or maybe you have someone, you make something and they market stuff and they sell stuff, and you know they would be great at doing that part of the business and you don't. You have no idea how to do that. Then perhaps that's the kind of person you have, and maybe you have a higher percentage that you get because you have to take off all your costs, expenses. But if you have a partner, really think deep and hard, because a partner can really mess up your business or add to it. So make sure, even if you know the person, that you have a way out if the partnership doesn't work without just closing down the business. I've had to do that before, where I thought the person was a marketing person. She said, I'm a marketing person. I said, fabulous. But priorities in her life didn't lead her to be able to actually act on being part of that business. She was just too busy. She had too many other things happening. So really think about how it feels. And if it's a partnership with a close friend or relative, realize that it's not worth not having this friend if things go wrong. So have this chat about that as well. The next thing you want to do is come up with a business plan. There's all kinds of stuff online about how to do it. I'm not going to go into details, but you need to figure out things like, how much will the startup cost be? So think about these things. I'm going to give you some things here. First, do you want a brick and mortar location? If you do, you have to put that on a list of finding one. But how much are the rents in your area? How much will you have to pay extra? Do you have any costs that are above and beyond that you have to pay for? Sometimes you have to pay for water or garbage or electricity just yourself. And a lot of times you do, actually. So think about those things. Maybe you can share a brick and mortar location with someone else if it's a coaching or an energy work thing you're doing. But if you have a store, obviously, you're probably not going to share it with someone. But you might if you can get like a conglomerate where you get other people. I'm talking about crafting right now, but there's all sorts of different people that they do share space for that sort of thing. Usually you have to have one umbrella, but you can get other people to also sell there and help share the cost. And then the other startup costs would be entity formation costs. We're going to get into what type of entity you want, but if you decide on a corporation, for example, or an LLC, there are costs related to that, just setting it up. Do you need a lawyer to set it up? Can you do it yourself? Do you need assistance? And really a smart thing to do is to actually hire a lawyer, even if it's only for an hour, to say, this is what I want. What kind of entity do you think I should have? Because there's all different types of entities and there are ramifications for how they impact you, which I'll, like I said, get into in a minute. The other things that are startup costs would be licensing, permits that you might have to have. If you need to take classes or have certifications, like I mentioned last time, I had a really expensive startup when it came to classes of different types. Do you need equipment? I mean, maybe no, maybe yes. What do you want to do with your hobby? Do you need more and better equipment? There's advertising and marketing costs, which include business cards, website setup, all those sorts of things. So all these different things, look at the startup costs. Because I thought, life coaching, no startup costs. I don't need to buy anything. I can do it in my home. I can do it on the phone. I don't need anything. Well, there was all the classes. There's the business cards. There's the networking, the marketing. Do I have to belong to groups? There was a lot more than I thought. So give that some thought and make sure that you can afford it, or that if you need a small business loan, that you really think about it. Check into it to see if you qualify and how to qualify if you feel you need it. Think how much you need, and you'll definitely need a business plan for that. You can hire somebody to put together a business plan if you have no idea how to do it, make it look really official, but make sure if you do that, that you understand how to explain it to somebody if you need to. And now I want to get into the type of entity, because there are all sorts of different things, and each one has a different tax liability consequence. I mean, there's taxes and ways that you do it. There's also the liability consequences for yourself individually. So do you want to be a sole proprietorship, which means it's just you just do your business, it's Joe Smith, and that's it. If that's the case, you might want to have a different name. Maybe it's Joe Smith Electronics. So then you put in a doing business as a DBA you want to put in. So that's a fictitious business name statement. Fictitious business name statements, I believe, are across the country, or at least in the United States. But if you're in another country listening to this, there are probably permits you need as well. Look into it, see if that's the case. Obviously, I'm not an expert in even different states, let alone around the world, but there are always things and hoops you need to jump through in order to have your business. So the first question is sole proprietorship. How does that feel? I know in California, you're liable for anything that happens. You need to make sure you have insurance, but personally, a lot of times you're still liable. You're too close to the business. If you have a partnership with someone, you can make a general partnership agreement. You can set it up. You can register it. Is that what you want? Then you're both liable for anything that goes wrong. You're liable for the other person's actions as well as your own. Then there's the corporate. You can have a corporation. You can have different types of corporations. There's an S corporation and a C corporation, and I'm not going to get into details so you can decide, but I'm letting you know there are different types. So when you go to an attorney, you can ask them, what about this? What about that? And it won't be a big surprise, and maybe it'll cost you less money when you go there because you'll have a little bit of background on it. There's also an LLC. An LLC is, at least in the United States, it's a limited liability company, so you have a little more space between you and necessarily like the liability issue. But tax-wise and how much these cost to set up, to keep ongoing, in some states, there's no cost or very minimal. You have to do a filing once a year. Or sometimes if you have an LLC in California, you have to pay $800 every year, whether you make anything or not. And that's a lot of money when you make zero money, or you make less than zero because you have so many expenses. There are decisions to make. But ask the attorney if you go, I know the different types of entities. Tell me, this is my situation, what's the best one for me and why, so that you can make an informed decision. Realize that if you decide to do a fictitious business name, at least in California, you have to publish it in a newspaper and then send the affidavit that it's been published back to the county again. Pay attention to the rules in your state. Know what to ask. If you decide that you want to do doing business as a DBA that you may have seen, a different kind of name other than your own. There are, like I said, tax and liability consequences, and the cost, though, for each is totally different. And if you sell the business, what's best? Because sometimes when you sell the business as a sole proprietorship, you can't really do it. It's just you. Because if you're the whole business and you're gone, people might, especially if you make something, people may want to buy it, but if they buy the business and you make something and you're the only one that does it, you may not be able to sell it. You may just be retired instead of being able to sell your business. If you have a manufacturing thing going for your idea, that's different. Then you can sell your business easily. And people do, and they make a lot of money. There's also ideas, of course, that you can work on with the internet that doesn't cost anything so much, for startup fees as much. So all of these different thoughts, what is it that is your business and your hobby? And that will help drive the kind of entity you use and also what you tell the attorney when you talk to them. You need to figure out, what do you want to name this business? This is super important because you want to decide, do you use your own name? If it's a really hard name to spell and you want to use social media, don't use your own name. Nobody will ever find you, but you can find something that is catchy, something that's fairly short as a business name, easy to spell for a Google search. It may be a little unique, or a lot unique, but if it's catchy, it's funny, sometimes it's easy to remember. If it's appropriate for your business, you can ask friends if you're not coming up with anything that you think is good. Ask friends, what do you think? This is the kind of business. You can actually get a group together and kind of bounce ideas off of each other. If you have a party, throw a party and have alcohol and throw all sorts of ideas down. Have somebody who's not drinking too much actually write down the names that you come up with. They could be ridiculously goofy, or they could be really great. So have a naming party. Instead of for a child, have it for your business. You can also ask for a survey in social media. I did that when it came to the show. I wanted to know, okay, here's like 3 different names. Here's 3 different logos I have, the pictures related to it. What do you think? And I had people weigh in. Oh, I like this one because of this. I like that one. I vote for 1. I vote for number 2. And it was helpful because I could see even not so much the quantity, unless it was voting for the same one, that's one thing, but you might even be able to have it helpful because you'll see who likes which ones. Who are the ones that would be your clients? And maybe you only have 10 people that like one, but those are the exact people that you would have as your clients. Then pick that name, even if 20 people like the other one, because those people wouldn't even hire you. They're not the kind of people that you're looking for as your client or your customer. It's really important to name your business correctly for you, because once you put all that money into creating the name and having the corporate or whatever that you decide to do with the convention that way, you don't want to have to change it. You will need a federal ID number if you have anything. Normally you use your social security number for the sole proprietorship. The partnership may have a federal ID number, but a corporation and LLC have to have them. So that's something you can actually do yourself online, but you may want to pay the attorney to do that if you're uncomfortable. Or you can have your CPA do it, actually, whoever you decide to use. Another step, who's going to be your tax person? Can your personal person that does your taxes, if you don't do it, do your business for you? It's a little more convoluted. You need to make sure they're okay with that. Do you want to keep a separate bank account? Yes, 100%. If you can, from the beginning, keep a separate bank account, especially if it's the corporation, because you're going to need that federal ID number for opening a bank account. A lot of times, if you can, sometimes the startup is just too much, the cost. You have to pay it out of your own pocket. But then keep really good records of what, and the fact that this is all me. This is all me advancing funds for the company. I unfortunately ended up doing a little something different because I had the bank account fairly much from the beginning, but I had no money in it. So I tried to give it cash and loan from me. So if you do a loan from yourself, then you can do paperwork on a loan and then do everything from that bank account. There are ramifications for tax. If you get audited, there's all kinds of ramifications. So you have to decide what works best for you. But I do highly recommend a separate bank account. Now, keeping in mind, I'm not a lawyer. I've just been through this. And I worked for lawyers for a long time. Another thing you need to ask yourself is, do you need a credit card? Maybe you can just get an ATM card, which is also a credit card, on your bank account, but maybe you want a separate one as well, so it doesn't go directly out of your bank account, and you can keep better track of it. Those are a little harder to get. It's harder to get credit as a business, so you need to keep that in mind and find a way to make that work. I mentioned before licensing and permits. You need to do your research because every area is different. Every state is different. You may have local business licenses or permits. There are county tax, business, property tax. I mean, they're called all different things when I've looked up different counties for my clients to say, hey, this is what you have in your county. Wait. So they're little different names. So you need to maybe even call to check in with that. But most of the businesses, you just type in a certain county and you say business startup, and they'll give you the information on what, because they want your money. So they'll give you information on whether you need it or not. And even if you have something really small, your hobby you may already have to have a business license. I know I did, or I do when I do crafts. I have to actually have a business license in my city. So there are different things in the city, the county, the state, all had different things. And make sure if you need a resale license, you set that up with the state, all these different permits and licenses. Depending on what you make, what you do, you might have to be part of, with me, International Coaching Federation. You may need to do things like that. It may look good on your resume, or it may not matter. The next thing to think about is, how about a logo? Something you can use in advertising that's catchy. You want something that's eye-catching and on brand. And we're going to get to branding in a second. What trademark do you want? Do you want one? Most people don't need a trademark, but they might want that logo that they can use everywhere. And people go, oh, I know them. I mean, you know what the Nike little sweep is. You know what some of these things are. McDonald's, Big M. You know, because it's something that you've seen over and over again. If you're doing branding, which you should do, you want something that people go, oh, that's them. And sometimes you need to shake it up a little with different colors just to get people's attention. If you use blue, it's always very calming, but it doesn't catch the eye, mine is mostly blues. But once in a while, I'll throw out, for my show, I'll throw out a social media post that's in a whole different color just to go, whoa, okay, what was that? Give it some thought. Normally you want a specific color or colors, no more than 2 generally. Sometimes the third one, maybe a little splotch in there just so to catch your eye. You want specific fonts because that way it looks across the board pretty clear. And you want a specific type of design. Those are branding ideas. Those you can decide later, obviously, but these are things to think about. Of course, you need to design your business card. Sometimes these morph over time. A lot of times they do. You might use a picture of yourself. If you are somebody like as a life coach, I want people to recognize me and feel comfortable with me, so my picture is on there. But the picture doesn't have to be on there for other things. For me, the energy work speaks for itself. I don't need my picture to be there. But coaching is a very intimate thing, and I need them to feel comfortable, so my picture is on those cards. And I have 2 separate cards for that. But if you're selling a service, maybe you have a picture of yourself, but if you're selling an item, you have a picture of the item, or nothing. I have a friend who's a music teacher. She has a picture of piano keys on one side, or music notes you could put. The most important thing is, of course, don't make it too busy, and use both sides if you need to. Leave space for somebody to write on the back. Don't make it black on one side so that you can't write on it. They're very, very noteworthy if they're black or a dark color, but you can't write on them. And if you're meeting anybody in person at some point, then you need them to be able to write down like, oh, yes, I like this person, or call them or something. So you want them to be able to write on the card. There's also video business cards now where you actually, I don't know if you've heard of these, but you can have a link, and it looks like a regular business card that you send somebody by email, and they click on it, and it's a video card. You start talking just like you're on YouTube, and it's like, hi, I'm Carol DeChaine, and I'm a life coach, and this is what I can do for you, or whatever. This is the freebie I want to give you. Those are really fascinating, and I know a number of people that are connected to that and use that. You also want to maybe hire somebody to design your website. Maybe you write all the pages, but the person designs the website and sticks it up and shows you different options and says, hey, you pick the basic design, I'll put all the information in and get it up and running, and maybe they can even train you to keep it up. I know the person who put mine together trained me because I had figured out Wix on my own, but then when I switched over to WordPress, I needed help because it's a lot more convoluted, and she did all the basics and showed me how to keep my blog updated, to keep entering things. Now I can do pages that are separate. Sometimes I have to look up my notes again to figure out how to do it. So you just need to realize there is that whole thing. If you decide you want a website, some people don't. They just have their Facebook page or their Instagram page, and that's enough for them with their email. Oh, and you need an email with your business email, something that Google email or whatever you can do, those, they don't look as professional if they're a Gmail at gmail.com, but you can also not spend too much money and get a domain. I have Google domains. They're a piece of cake to do. You go on, you just type it up, and you can have all sorts of back-end choices of .com, .net, .whatever, .biz. There's a lot of them out there that you can have, and a lot of them that are available. So if you can find unusual ones that aren't too hard to spell, also you might want to think about having yourname.com, like caroldeschaine.com, which I purchased. It's $12 a year. And then you point it to your actual website. I post mine and forward it to connecttojoy.com because that is my actual website. That way, if somebody clicks on Carol DeChaine, they get that. The other thing you want to look at is to decide if you want to hire a VA, a virtual assistant, because it doesn't come into your office or it doesn't come to your home, but actually you talk to on the phone. They send you posts for things. They do all sorts of things for you. They can do phone calls. They can do searches. They can do whatever you want them to do. There's as many jobs as there are jobs. Things that you don't feel you want to do or you don't have the expertise in, instead of taking the time to learn all those things, I was paying somebody $10 an hour at one point, but they were from another country and didn't understand what I wanted. So then I stopped using them and I found somebody who speaks English a little better so they understood what I meant because it was a little difficult to explain. They're charging me $25 an hour, 20 or 25, I forget. Because of that, it's a lot more, but it's still not ridiculously expensive, but they do all kinds of things for me. She does all my posts to my business page in Facebook and to my Instagram page. So I don't have to do those if I don't want to. Just realize that you have lots of choices on who you hire, who you don't, how much time do you have, how much expertise do you have, and how much you're willing to learn are the three things to ask yourself. And of course, how much money are you willing to spend to get somebody to help you? You can get somebody for $1,000 a month. They can deal with all of your posts and all of everything, but who has that much to start out with? It's something you kind of work your way into if you figure that somebody is working. You start small and you get people to help you unless you have a lot of money. But then you want to decide as you're going along, another piece of the puzzle is what social media is best for you to use. Now, I recommend, and so does most people I know, that you choose two. Which ones will get you the most bang for your buck? Unless you have a ton of time and you want to spend a lot of time posting and liking and commenting, you need to decide what works best for you. So if you look at Facebook, do you want a business page? Do you want to do your personal page for your business? Don't put personal stuff on your personal page and business. It's really difficult to mix the two. You can mention on your personal page, oh my God, my business is doing so much fun. Here's more information on this page. And you can share stuff from your business page on your personal page if you like, although it's harder and harder to do that because they wouldn't let you for a long time. But don't mix the two if you can help it. The great thing about the business page, at least so far, is that you can still schedule posts there so you don't have to do them all the same day and do them live. I've noticed that they haven't let me do it beyond, I think it's 2 months now or so many days that they let you schedule a post out in the future. So when I post and schedule my YouTube videos, it won't let me do them more than I think it's 3 months in advance. So I have to wait and then myself a note to remember to do all of those schedules later when they become available time-wise. There's also, of course, LinkedIn. If you're more business related and it's very straight, you want business, then you want to use LinkedIn and find out all the ins and outs and how to do it, or hire that virtual assistant or someone who can actually do the posts for you and get you connected however that is going to work. Instagram is really good for anything with pictures, to get people to follow you, to get people to really know who you are. Twitter, if you have things to say, of course, and TikTok is really starting to boom, and it's something that is making people really interested and is fun. But I think it takes a little bit of time to get those together, so you have to decide if there's lots of different platforms you can use. Those are just some of them. I do recommend using the virtual assistant, though, because I do find that really helps. And then other things to think about. I know it's probably overwhelming, but what about a calendaring system? There may be other types of systems you want to use. There are some that when you join groups for networking, another thing to do, you may find that you need a system for keeping track of the business cards. And sometimes you can get all-in-one systems. There's one I know that I don't have the name off the top of my head that's helps you follow up. It gives you notes. Okay, this is email number 1 you sent out. This is email number 2 you sent out. But it gives you reports back on that. I don't know if MailChimp or Constant Contact do that, but those obviously also handle emails, and you can get those out. The connections you can keep track of there. I talked about joining groups for networking. I'm in Toastmasters, but also there are other types of businesses. Obviously, there's Chamber of Commerce. I belong to the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, and there are a number of different people to network with. Some of them you can also learn when you're in there. Well, Toastmasters helps you be a better leader and speak. But the ones like the Holistic Chamber are really good for connecting. I've had a number of clients come through there because they recommend clients to me. I recommend clients to them. Sometimes you end up buying things from them because they have, I use real-time pain relief for my knees, and that's been excellent. And so I got started with someone through Holistic Chamber. You talk to people, you learn, you grow. The networking is amazing, but you have to find the right ones that work for you. And if you aren't someone that is comfortable going out and talking to people, now with a lot of Zoom connections, and they put you in individual rooms with one other person or 2 other people, you have to talk to them. You don't just sit in your own corner, and it's so much easier if you're a shy person. So don't be afraid to do it. Just figure out the best one that is comfortable for you. There's lots of choices. There's also now, the next thought is marketing and advertising. Do you want an advertising campaign? Do you want to pay for it? Or do you just want to do the networking, the marketing somehow through social media, through friends? How do you want to handle that? And then when you start doing pretty well, do you want to take a salary? You need one at some point, right? If you are doing well and you're quitting your day job, you do need to have a salary. So there's that whole thing on how do you do that? It depends on the entity formation and how you put that together. Your tax person can tell you some of that, as well as your attorney can help with some of that. Remember, though, that for tax purposes, you need to keep track of all the money coming in and all the money going out, whatever they are. You can use QuickBooks. You can do reports on QuickBooks. Just use an Excel spreadsheet. But whatever you do, keep track. I know someone his business is amazing. And what he has is a scanner on his phone to take a copy of his receipts, because the receipts fade after a while. A lot of them do. So it's all of a sudden you look at it and it's 3 years later and you got almost nothing. You can hardly read it. Scanning the receipts on your phone, and then he emails his to his assistant, and she keeps track of all that because his business is really going well. So he has an assistant who is full-time. But he emails those to his bookkeeper, and she takes care of it for him, so he can then throw away the receipt when she gets it. I'm not saying all this stuff to scare you, but I want you to think of what you want to do and how you want to do it, and know all those pieces of the puzzle, and there's probably quite a few more, but this should get you started, to give you some ideas so I know what I'm doing. I see all these A through L things I have to do. A, I have to think about how I want to do this. B, I got to think about the title, the name of my business. C, I got to think about the formation of the business. D, really think about its specialty. How do I advertise? Are there licenses? Is there more schooling? Do I need to get certified? Think about all those sorts of things. But don't get so caught up in the details that you let it bog you down or you talk yourself out of it. Oh, I can't do that. That's too much. Hire somebody. Some people aren't going to be that expensive. And sometimes it won't matter if it is because maybe you're okay that way. Think about it. How much do you want to do this thing you love? And how much easier is it maybe to just keep working where you're working? Maybe you're a worker bee and that's fine with you. But if you love what you do, you want to make this, I'm calling it a hobby for lack of a better word, into your entrepreneurial business. Then know that all these things, you can go back and listen to this and start writing down some of the ideas, the steps that you need to take. Not all of them have to be in a specific order, but obviously you want the name of your business before you do business cards. You want to know the niche you're in if you need a niche, the refinement of what you're doing, which can shift. I know mine has. And I've gotten different business cards because of it. Sometimes I have 3 business cards and I put each one out when I'm at when I used to be at holistic fairs and things, I would put different name cards out because it depends on what they were interested in. I can do this, this, and this. Here's different cards. And of course, make sure you hire either an attorney or someone skilled in the nuts and bolts in order to make sure that you do it right the first time. It's really worth it. Find out ahead of time how much they charge. Tell them what you need to know. You can ask how much it is for an hour of their time, and then how much is it if you decide to go forward like with a corporation, how much that would cost, as well as the cost in your state or wherever you're at. If they have corporations and that's what you do, how much is it to keep it up and running? They might be able to help you all those things. But don't worry. Please don't worry. There are no right or wrong answers with what you do. There are just the right answers for you. There are answers that, what does it feel right? What do you want to do? And know that if you have fears, it's normal. Don't get overwhelmed. I said all these things knowing that you could get overwhelmed with the process. There's a lot to it. It's true. But you don't have to do it alone. You can ask for help. And you also don't have to have it right the first time. If you change your mind on something, there's ways to fix it. Try and find a name. This is something I probably should have said earlier, but when you're looking at finding a name for your business, try and find the name that can be different things if you want it to be. Connect to Joy is the name of my business. Connect the number 2, Joy. I can do life coaching. Show comes under this. I can go in any direction I want, and as long as it brings somebody joy, it can be under the umbrella of my business. You may not want that. You want to be specific sometimes. If you know what you want, be as specific as you want to be. It's all good. It's your choice. And I hope that this has helped you understand all the different ins and outs, at least some of them, and quite a few of them, things to think about, things to ponder over, and to know you can make a list if you're a list maker so that you don't forget anything. And there's going to be some other things that are going to pop up that you want to put on that list as well, obviously. You can do it. I know you can. Have faith and know that whatever you want to do, you can do. You just need to put your mind to it. Let me just finish with saying, be brave, be bold, and have courage because you can have a limitless life, much more than where you are now. You can find your joy. You deserve it. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you love the show, make sure you rate, review, and share this podcast and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Connect with me on Facebook or by email with questions and comments, ideas for future episodes, or if you would like to be a guest, give me a shout out and I'll send you an application. Until next week, remember, you are already enough to have that joyful, limitless life that you desire.
Thank you for listening to Connect to Joy. If you love the show, make sure you rate, review, and share this podcast. And subscribe so you never miss an episode. Contact the host, Carol DeChaine, with questions and comments, ideas for future episodes, or if you would like to become a guest. And remember, transformation is a journey and not an end destination. So be kind to yourself, because you are already enough to have the joyful, limitless life that you desire.